Justin, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. I'm really excited to hear your perspective, not just as a professor of urban planning, but also because you have a background in political science like I do. And I think that your nuance on this is going to be quite unique. But first, if you could introduce yourself, and I can't wait to hear what you have to say.
Yeah. Hi, Lydia. Thanks for inviting me to be part of that. So Justin Hollander, I am a professor of urban planning at Tufts University. We're just outside of Boston in the US.
And today you're going to speak to us about the biometrics aspect. I
Yeah.
and I was reading it like I got a little ahead of myself and I was reading some of your work and I saw about how you also look into the inequalities piece. I don't know if you're going to touch on that, but if you can, that would be very interesting. All right, go over to you.
Sprinkle that in. Great. Well, yeah, I have some slides, but as we discussed, I'm happy to as we're talking about something, we're looking at an image together. Just definitely jump in, and we'll kind of look at that together. So just to kind of start with, there's this question of, well, what do I mean like by biometrics? And when you consider what's involved in the myriad of different decisions about shaping the built environment, whether we're talking about how wide a sidewalk is, where the parking should go, what the facade of a building should look like, how is fenestration designed, all these things, I was always taught that it's all subjective,
Hmm.
and that subjective process makes kind of urban design, architecture, it's a kind of an art. Um, and what's been really fun for me is working with my colleague and collaborator Ann Sussman. We really found out through trial and error that actually there are some objective measurements that we can take, and that is where we're kind of looking at the human experience and how people are responding to these places,
Mhm.
not from a drone or an airplane looking down to see if it's a beautiful layout of a street, but what about someone who's actually walking down that street? How do they respond? And so here are just some images that kind of help you get a sense of the insights that's happening at that unconscious level. And that middle one is it's a heat map. It has nothing to do with heat. It's about where are the eyes focusing. So the redder, darker spots are where the eyes are fixating. And that fixation, especially in the first few seconds when you first see a scene or an image, is happening unconsciously. And then the one to the right is a gaze map, and that's showing where the order that a typical person would look at a scene. So you can see that number one, they would look at that. It looks like some red flowers, and then they look to the left, some of these cars, and they look up at this lamppost, and then they see the sign. That would be the last thing. So this kind of objectifying metrics, gives us like really new ways to understand how places operate and what we can do to better design them.
It's the human experience, basically, what you're showing here with that.
Yeah, and the human spirit experience has been, generally lacking, at least in this perspective. I actually studied Columbia, Maryland. It's a new town that was developed in the 1960s and 70s here in the U.S. And they really talked about the human experience over and over again, and they brought psychologists in, but it was not like this. They had a very different kind of view of what that meant. And if you ever go there, you'll be disappointed. It's a very unpleasant place. So we wrote about it in the cognitive architecture book.
Well, I have family who lives there. I'm familiar with that particular city.
Really? Oh,
Yeah, and
wow.
so the neighborhoods are meant to be connected, so you can walk through the
Right,
neighborhoods. So there's that, but the walking to shops and stuff like that, not so much.
right. So yeah, I just wanted to just give everyone like a sense of what we're talking about here when I use the word biometrics. This is like one way that you can set it up. And here
Mhm.
in this case, there's a camera below, there's a camera above, and the subject is going through this kind of pre-experiment where their eyes are being calibrated.
Mhm.
And so the screen kind of changes, and the system kind of understands where their eye is and what they're looking at on the screen.
So
And
quick
this is what it looks
question.
like in
Why is there
video.
a camera below?
It just gives it two perspectives.
Okay.
Most of the stuff we've done since then has actually only been one camera, but that was like an earlier technology. So as her eye moves, you can see on the right, it's picking
Mm.
up. And the larger the circle, the more fixation, the longer the fixation is. And that suggests that it's something that there's something about the shape or the color that is kind of drawing the eye on that unconscious level. Really focusing on those first few seconds. So
Mm-hmm.
this is on the right. That's a library in
Mm-hmm.
Staten Island, New York City.
Mm-hmm.
And what we did is we took out the windows. And so I'll just go back just so you can see it. There are windows. We photoshopped out the windows because a lot of the research suggests that that kind of bilateral symmetry, that kind of arrangement of the fenestration to make it look like a face, that's something that people are drawn to. So we wanted to see what happens when it's not like that. And oh, I'm sorry, I didn't show you the video on this one. Um, so right off the bat, you see it's like his eyes are really just going more to the center. They're not looking at as much. And this is what it is compiled. And you can see on the right with the windows, the typical person would take in the
Statistical
whole
difference
building.
here.
There's a really important difference that's happening here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you can see this compiled, the data compiled across all the subjects in these heat maps. Again, no heat, it's about how intense people are taking in the building. So after doing some of this kind of pilot work in New York, we got connected with a former Army base outside of Boston. Superfund means that it's a place where there was a special environmental cleanup program here in the US called the Superfund program. So a lot of contamination. So there was a big push to try to use a sustainability approach to create a reuse program. And
Mm-hmm.
so I wanted to kind of just walk through, what this looks like in a real place. So one of the things that they were trying to do was to create places that they thought would be, this compact housing, energy efficient, walkable, and with a variety of housing types. And they wanted to know, using the biometrics, what like was that working? Like, did that seem to accomplish what we wanted? So this is, of course, a beautiful watercolor rendering. And this is actually what it looked like at the time that we were doing it. So you can see one big difference is the trees are a lot smaller.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of the architecture and urban design, pretty similar with all the front porches close to the street. If you travel around, and we did outside of this military base reuse project, every house is set back at least like about 40, about 100 or 150 feet. And on these large lots, and front porches are very rare. So very different kind of feel. So it's kind of interesting to see how that worked. The first thing that we came to was to recognize that there was a very strong kind of pull around walkability in
Mm-hmm.
this design. And you can see how people are kind of like looking closely at the front porches, and they're kind of drawn to those building facades. And
Mm-hmm.
then this is what's really kind of neat is this the order. So this is that gaze path I was showing you before. You could see that the person, as they see it, they're kind of like drawn towards that walking path, which is exactly the goal of that kind of vernacular design. And here's what's interesting. This is the garages that are behind these buildings, which is not a pedestrian place. This is not a place that was designed for people. And they succeeded because,
Yeah.
you look at it through that kind of biometrics lens, the unconscious lens, and you see there's nothing to fixate on. People are looking
Yeah.
up at the trees, and then like the gaze path, it's like,
Mm.
so yeah, so you can use these types of biometrics to predict how walkable a place might be, and
Can I
help
ask you a
understand
question?
that. Yeah.
In your book, Cognitive Architecture, you talk about the narrative of a place. Is that relevant here where somebody's like trying to mind map kind of their path? Is that part of the narrative of like trying to understand what the place is about?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the garage space is on the bottom. I mean, there's nothing there. It's like total chaos and disorienting.
Mhm.
But on the top screen, there's the potential beginning, middle, and end. There's a sense that there's like a progression. And so urban planners and architects and urban designers, can think about how do you tell a story when someone comes and comes to a place and experiences that place? How do you do that in a way that taps into that kind of natural predilection at the unconscious level for
Mm.
certain shapes and colors and patterns? And that's that you can see it right here, and that's
Mm.
that's one way.
Okay, cool.
So I want to kind of show you a couple more slides from Devin, some other kind of interesting things we came up across. So here the red is just suggesting that those kind of blobs are where like people's eyes are like mainly drawn to. And for me, this is like such a light bulb moment because, I studied like art history, architectural history, and I mean, humans have been building with columns since antiquity and flags. I mean, probably well before antiquity. And we see that both columns and flags are some of the things that draw the eye the most. So, there's that kind of ancient, human history of building in these types of forms, and that's a still image. Imagine if that flag was flapping and we had a video.
Hmm.
That's going to draw the eye even more.
True.
So that's why we do these things. It's because humans have always kind of known what attracts people, and it's something that essentially, like in that kind of the modern era, we've really forgotten.
Hmm.
Yeah, this is just another one where you just kind of see how just, moving the position of the flag, changes kind of how people, see it. What's the first kind of item that they see? That I thought that was kind of neat.
Hmm.
Um, but you also see again how much the columns, really kind of stand out. And it's not that complicated. This is not a rocket science. It's just the contrast. Columns
Hmm.
create that contrast. And maybe a modernist might say, oh, but we have other ways of creating contrast without being, wedded to the kind of these ancient forms
Hmm.
that are so loaded with other, political connotations. That's all true.
Hmm.
But this kind of traditional styles have
Hmm.
continued to be effective. I think I just had one more on this. No, that was my last slide on Devon's. But happy to answer any questions, or we can move on to I just had one more study I wanted to kind of
Yeah,
walk you
go
through.
for it, go for it.
Okay. Um, so all of that is like based on a software that we were able to use to kind of predict where people would look. It's
Hmm.
emulation of eye tracking.
Hmm.
Here we used these glasses that actually have cameras in the glasses looking at your eyeballs, and then also has cameras looking at what you see.
Hmm.
So we wanted to try to use this in the field to compare these two streets that are parallel to each other in the Back Bay of Boston. And
Hmm.
on the top, Newbury Street, is pretty well known as just one of the most beautiful, pleasant, lovely streets in Boston. And it very popular any time of the day. You'll always see people enjoying spending time there, walking around, going to shops. And then the right one block over, Boylston Street, which is a much, as you can see, a lot of steel and glass buildings,
Hmm.
a newer street, newer architecture, and
Hmm.
really wide. You can see the streets very wide.
Hmm.
And so kind of intuitively, we all kind of know that the top is better. But so the question is, well, what about using these biometrics?
Hmm.
Can we show that
Hmm.
using
I'm excited to see what you
using
came up with.
the eye tracking? Yeah, yeah. So um, these videos are kind of neat because as the person's moving, we get it
Wow.
in real time. And you can see just in these first few seconds, they are looking at the beautiful brick
Yeah.
architecture,
Yeah. And the
and
bay windows.
bay windows. Yeah, because there's just like so much contrast there. But
Yeah.
they're also looking at other things. Whoa. And then they start looking at the people. Oh my God. Well, because we are a social species, right? We were, evolved to
Yeah.
want to be near other people. I think it's just going to go
And
again.
also the flower beds, that little shoe statue.
Yeah. This is another way to look at the videos. It's just a little bit easier to see it. So we just kind of clipped 10 seconds and then just showed all the lines.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and instead of being able to kind of test this hypothesis and prove that we were right all along, instead this is what we found actually
Mm-hmm.
again and again. Yes, people did look at the buildings and flower pots and other people, but mainly they looked at cars
Hmm. Why? Because they were for safety reasons.
for safety
People
reasons.
and
I think
cars.
they see them as predators.
Hmm.
Yeah, and it was amazing. Also, the parked cars. I had this one here. That one's moving. That one's a parked car. So it's for kind of me and my team. We really felt that this was our opportunity to kind of really prove that Newbury Street was better for people. But what we really proved was that cars are really bad for people. That's the thing that seems to generate the most stress and the most attention. We
Hmm.
also use this these other measures. Oh yeah, this is people too. We people definitely looked at people. They were scared of the other people, especially when they're in this kind of big group and you're outnumbered, right? That's
Yeah.
we're designed to kind of be afraid of that. But we also used. Oh, I think this is another. Yeah, we also use this galvanic skin response.
Yeah.
I've been really talking so much about eye tracking, but there are many other biometrics we can use, and I've used as well. We've like
Mm-hmm.
heart rate. We can measure someone's heart rate. We've done stuff with EKG to measure brainwave activity, so like how kind of stressed out you are. But in
Hmm.
this study, we combined the glasses with this galvanic skin response, which is really mainly measuring your sweat glands, which are typically are responding to situations of stress. And
Hmm.
so in that we were able to kind of show this okay. Yeah, so the graphs kind of show these peaks, and so the peaks tend to be associated with higher levels of stress.
Mm-hmm.
And they were for this particular part of it, it was usually when they were near people, other people or dogs, but also near the cars. And so we were able to
Mm.
kind of show the link, not just looking at the cars, but also you know exhibiting stress around the cars. And this is that one I showed you before, looking at all those people, and that associated with a little bit of a peak on the GSR. And then here, of course, the car, worrying about what's going to happen. Is that car coming after you? I mean, cars, they're designed to look like, predators with the two eyes. They're like coming after you.
What's so
And he,
interesting is that the parked cars, so that last one, there was a person in the car. So you
yeah,
might be like on guard, like
right.
but if it's across the street, like the other one you showed, and it was totally parked, nobody was in it, it's so interesting that it still creates stress. Just the presence of them is creating stress.
And I think a lot of it has to do with just what the cars look like. Some cars are
Hmm.
designed to be very, very scary looking,
That's right.
whether it's the front grille or the lights or,
Hmm.
yeah, and bigger cars, SUVs, they're designed to intimidate other drivers on the road and apparently pedestrians and cyclists as well. I never really thought about it like that,
Hmm.
especially when they're parked. I mean, who it never really occurs to
Exactly.
you. But yeah, so this is something that was really interesting. This is just shows you when the researcher was taking off, how much of a peak that is. It's
Hmm.
like you're being touched by a stranger, right? um,
Wow.
but yeah, so in comparing these two places, we also asked people questions. That's the pre and post surveys, and that we were able to prove our hypothesis, which was that the people who walked along Newbury, they all said they preferred that over walking on Boylston Street. But the other data was like just more mixed. It was just fun though as experiments to just kind of
Hmm.
see what was there. Um, but I just have just like one conclusion slide to kind of sum up, but I'm happy to we'll just continue the conversation. Just and I've done quite actually a lot of other studies in addition to these, but I just thought these would be very compelling to get
Hmm.
us started. But I mean, for me, it's just that there's definitely really important ways that we can talk about how these different environments are affecting us internally in a way that was never part of my training as an urban planner. I studied landscape architecture, never talked about in a meaningful way, and so that really gives us new tools to understand how our different designs can impact people, both emotionally, physically,
Hmm.
and mentally. And that these specific tools that we talked about, the ET for eye tracking and GSR,
Hmm.
again, advanced skin response, in the case of these studies, um, these are not expensive. You don't need to be a neuroscientist to be able to use them. They're basically off the shelf with a little bit of training. And I should mention that in addition to working and teaching at Tufts and doing research there, I also helped Anne. We started a nonprofit organization that one of its goals is specifically to kind of help uh, practicing architects and urban planners, like help them learn how to use these tools and train them and support them because it's not hard. You just need a little hand holding, and so that's one of the,
Hmm.
that we do. But yeah, so this is my last slide is just these are two books that on this topic that so Anne and I wrote the cognitive architecture book. And then we edited this book, Urban Experience and Design, which is really a play on UX, user experience. So it's
Hmm.
UX, user experience, urban experience. Kind of thinking about using this type of approach in shaping the public realm.
Thank you. I definitely have questions. So, if you have been able to prove this, which you have, with empirical evidence, with human subjects live in these environments, and you have a planning background and you understand urban policy planning, could you tell me what is the bottleneck that's stopping this from becoming more of a thing where it's like, no, we need to have these types of tests done beforehand, and we need to make sure that we don't stress people out with our urban planning.
Yeah, so I think there are a few issues. Um, you familiar with the concepts of path dependency?
Yes, please elaborate.
Yeah, so for your viewers, we as humans are used to doing things a certain way. And we kind of get used to doing it that way. And we build entire systems and structures and policies, procedures to make it go that way. So even if there's a better way, we may end up not changing. We may end up just continuing on that same path. Um, and so what I have observed is whether we're talking about like an architecture firm that's, competing, trying to, get a job, or if it's like a local urban planning department for a city or town, there's a sense that like, well, that's not how we do things.
Yes.
And we have our ways, and that's it. So for me, the most exciting stuff has been around kind of younger people. So I work with students as part of my
Yeah.
job. They don't care. They have no path, no path dependence. They're starting fresh. I actually did a talk about some of this stuff at one of the most prestigious architecture schools in the country, and a big audience. It was really really fun for me. Students loved it. They're like, "This is great. Why have we been learning all this other stuff? This is, this is really what we need to be focused
Yeah.
on." But the professors, they were very threatened by it. They felt like I have spent my entire career, deciding how we should approach design, and it has nothing to do with any of this. I've never looked at someone's heart rate when I've been
Mhm.
trying to think about like what I want the approach to a building to look like. They felt threatened. They felt like this is not what they do. And but the students were happy to learn something new. They're like, this is great. So
But don't you think that those professors, to a certain degree, and anyone who opposes this, um, is a bit selfish considering the power that they wield in designing the environment and not considering the impact it has? And, even if they say, this is not what we do, yeah, it's not what you do, but it doesn't mean that you can't say, but I want to incorporate it to understand the value of this, that this is a matter of public health.
yeah, and I'm totally on board with you on that. So through writing and talking about this type of work and doing this type of research, and so it's I mentioned Ann Sussman and this nonprofit, the Human Architecture Planning Institute, and many colleagues. I've been seeing this really exciting growth of other people who are looking at these kinds of questions, advancing this type of work in their practice. And the result is that it's starting to change. So you're starting to have this kind of groundswell. But I think change takes time. So I'm not too worried. I think that we will start to, in the coming years, start to see this type of approach
Hmm.
more baked into decision making. It'll get to the point where if a firm is bidding on a job, oh, let me just back up. Early in my career, green building started to emerge as an
Hmm.
idea, and the Green Building Council developed this framework to create points so you can get the leadership environmental design. I'm missing an E, LEED. They created this framework that has
Hmm.
been widely adopted. But the point was that before that, it was like, oh yeah, green building seems like a good idea. But now it's like a lot of institutions, they won't even build a building unless it's LEED certified. So that took some time, and I think
Hmm.
that we can expect that same thing to happen. That at a certain point, it'll be ridiculous for a firm to bid on a job without talking about how they're going to like study the human experience beforehand. But we're not quite there yet.
It's interesting you say that because I can already see what you're saying, the groundswell. So, for example, wellness centers are the early adopters of this.
Yeah.
And I think once wellness centers start to do this more and more, and the term neuroarchitecture starts to become more of a thing, then all of a sudden others are going to be like, well, I want a bit of that too. Like, why can't I have
Yep.
that too?
Yep.
And this kind of trajectory is also seen, for example, in investments. People are saying now that they want impact investments, and now there's all kinds of ways to report on that. So this is kind of like the green buildings, but like,
Yep.
so I agree that we are moving in the right trajectory, and it's nice to hear you point that out as well. I do have one last question. Can we go back to the slide of the way you had it juxtaposed, the in Boston? So you had the one street that was with the kind of red stones, that one. In the one below, um, comparatively, what was their stress level like? Was it at intersections where it spiked up? Like, what did you notice?
Yeah, I mean, so just because this is what is it, about 4 lanes of traffic, it's just a louder place.
Mm,
It's just a lot more volume of cars, um, and yeah, so that was like one factor that was just like an overall, and I do believe that the architecture, being so uninviting and all the glass and steel, I think that also functioned, but I don't remember anything particular about the intersection because you can't see it in this image, but Newbury Street also has intersections where you have to wait and cross.
mhm,
And it's actually exactly the same interval because it's a grid, and these two roads are
mhm,
parallel.
mhm,
Um, but I think that the just the quality of the roadway is just so much inferior in Boylston to the human experience
mhm,
because of it's so much louder, and you just have more trucks
mhm,
throwing going through, and so that makes it unpleasant.
mhm. And what's the next thing you're looking to research that you're hoping to do?
Well, I keep pretty busy. I have a bunch of projects that are going on right now. I have this partnership right now with these people who are interested in using walking to improve people's therapy outcomes related to trauma.
Hmm.
And so they take people into the woods on walks. And so what we want to do is try to help them better understand objectively using biometrics, what kind of impact that's having on people as they go through walks in the
Oh,
woods.
that's lovely.
So
Well, I look forward to seeing the results of that, and I thank you so much for your time to share this research with us.